Hi friends, this is Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I'm grateful to have you here. We're having a special crafty video hop, which is a collaboration between Pear Blossom Press and Picket Fence Studios. So I'm excited to have some of these new paper pouncers in the pint size. I have all of the big ones, so now I'm excited to have the little ones too. I'm also going to be using more of the Best Hugs Ever. I have the Best Hugs Ever stamp set and I love it. So excited to have this one now in my collection, as well as the Tree Bark 6x8 stencil from Picket Fence Studios. I also have my Pear Blossom Press supplies. I've got my best foam tape ever, my sentiment stock, a one light, and my little stamp and coordinating die set. I went ahead and stamped and colored in my cute hugging whales, and I'm going to be using this tree bark stencil as my ocean. I thought there was a section of it that looked a little bit like it could be used for water. So I have a panel that's cut slightly smaller than A2 in size. It is 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to use this top kind of I don't know, top or bottom, however you want to look at it. I'm going to use this portion of the stencil to add in some what I think look like waves and texture to the water. So before I get started, I'm going to take my lightest color blue, which is sky blue. This is a scrapbook.com hybrid ink pad. And I'm going to start with just using a blender brush to fully cover this panel. It takes me a little time because it's a big panel and this is a very pale blue color. So I wanted to get a lot of that ink on, and I wasn't trying to blend it perfectly. I wanted the texture, I wanted the splotchiness because of the depth and I guess shine that water has. I didn't care that it wasn't like a perfect seamless blend. I would have used probably distress oxides if I cared, but I didn't. So now I'm going to take my pint size pouncers, and I forgot to take it out of the container, so you'll see me pull it out here. But I'm going to go with the lighter of the teals that I have here, which is Caribbean. And I'm picking up some ink with a paper pouncer and then just applying it through the stencil. Once I'm done with Caribbean, I'll take the darker teal, which was Mermaid, and then I'll go back to blue and use Lagoon Blue to fully cover all of the openings through that tree bark stencil. And I think it looks really cool. I think it looks like waves. I really like it. I hope that you can see my inspiration or like what inspired me to make it look like an ocean scene. I want to add some splatter, so I'm going to use this blue metallic gem color watercolor. I added some water right into the palette and I'm using a brush to splatter that all over the background. I'm also going to bring in some of my bleed proof white ink. I'm going to put the water onto my glass mat and just take a little bit of paint out. I think I do 2 little paintbrush drops to blend that into the water and make it a splatter. So I'm going to splatter that all over the background as well, and I'll go ahead and set that aside to dry before moving on to the next part. So I'll clean up my desk, and now we're going to go on to the sentiment. I'm going to use my sentiment, or the Perfect Sentiment stock from Pear Blossom Press. It's this really nice, slick black cardstock, which is great for embossing in white. So I decided to use the sentiment that says, "A hug can make almost anything better." Once I have my sentiment in place on my MISTI, I'm using my anti-static powder tool and a clear embossing ink, and I'm going to emboss my sentiment with a detailed white embossing powder. I really like the super fine powders for embossing sentiments. Once I have that covered, I'll use my heat gun, which I totally bumped my camera with and didn't realize until I was doing editing, so sorry that I'm a little crooked, and go ahead and use a guillotine trimmer to cut that sentiment out. It's just a nice little straight sentiment for my card. Now let's move on to assembling our light together. So I'm using the one light and I'm going to get everything placed, and I remember that I wanted to stamp and color a heart as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that real quick off camera. I stamped in a really pale gray ink, colored them in with Olo markers, and then restamp them with a blue VersaFine ink, and you'll see that ink in a little bit when I stamp my push sentiment when I get to that step. So this is a rough layout of how my card is going to look, and I'm going to use this layout to know where my one light needs to go. So my plan is to have the one light up my heart, and I want my push sentiment to be right under the tail of the larger whale. So now that I have my heart placed where I want it, I'm just going to use a pokey tool and a piece of really thick foam to poke the hole for that one light to shine through. And then I'll go ahead and grab a pencil. So here I am figuring out where the one light needs to be, but I need to grab my pencil so I know where to adhere it to my white card base. I have an A2 side folding card base, so I can have this card be horizontal. So before I make my pencil marks, I'm going to stamp the push. So I have my setup here in my MISTI, and I'm grabbing the push from the Pear Blossom Press stamp set, and I'm going to place it right on top of that little button. And it's a little crooked, but that's okay, I'll fix it. And I'm just picking it up with the door, and I'm just straightening it out. So that way I know exactly where I want my push to go, because that's how I'm going to lay out my one light when I attach it to my card base. So here I am grabbing that blue VersaFine ink, stamping the word, or sorry, inking my push, and then stamping that push sentiment right onto my background. Now I'll grab that pencil and I'm going to line up my background onto my card base, and I'll use the pencil to make a mark where the hole is, so just right through that hole. And then I'm going to hover my pencil and I'm going to make a mark where the push is. So I'm hovering my pencil, sliding that paper out of the way, and then making a mark where push is. That way I can get the one light angled just right onto that card base. I'm grabbing some double-sided adhesive. This is a 1-inch adhesive from scrapbook.com, and adding it to the back of my one light. I'll go ahead and pull off the release paper and get this adhered to my card base. So I'm going to angle the LED at the top and then angle it so that my push button lines up with my second mark right where I added that push stamp. Here I am testing it out. Everything looks good, so we'll go ahead and get our foam adhesive. I'm using the World's Best Foam Tape from Pear Blossom Press. It's the perfect thickness for all of the light mechanisms, and it's also removable for a short time, like half an hour or so. And that way you can pick up the tape if you totally put it in the wrong spot. It's great, and I absolutely love it for interactive cards. Now that I have everything ready to go for assembling, I'm going to go ahead and attach my heart next. I want my heart to glow, and I want it to really fill up the heart. So I'm going to grab some foam adhesive. This is thinner than the World's Best Foam Tape, and I'm going to trim a super thin. This was already a thin foam strip, but I'm cutting it in half, so it's about a 1/16 inch wide now. And I'm going to use that really thin piece of foam to trace around the heart, so that way when I glue it or adhere it to my background, just or on top of that opening for the LED, it will make the heart glow up more. So I'll go ahead and attach that to the background, and then I'm going to cover my whale, well, the back side of my whales that are hugging, as well as my sentiment, with the same thickness of foam adhesive. I'm peeling off all of the release paper from behind my panel and attaching that to my card base. And again, testing it. I test the one lights a lot. And then I took off all of the release paper from the back of my whales and added that to the card, and the same with my sentiment strip. I'm using my grid to help me make sure that my images are all centered onto my card base. For some final touches, I'm just going to grab a white gel pen and add a few highlights and a little bit of kind of little dots that match the stamp set, and that will finish off my card. I hope you had fun with me today creating with Pear Blossom Press and Picket Fence Studios. I would love to know what combination from Pear Blossom Press and Picket Fence Studios that you would make, and make sure you leave comments and get all of the information on the giveaway down below in my description. You can also find the playlist to hop along with us today, and I hope you have a lot of fun and get a lot of inspiration. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!